Looking to improve at Team Fortress 2, I see. Well, as someone with over 1,000 hours in this game, I'm sure I can help Yinz out with the basic stuff at least. How Yinz doing? I'm an Ian, and this is the Team Fortress 2 New Player's Guide to the Scout. Let's get into it.
I am the scout here!
The Scout is the glass cannon of the playable mercs in Team Fortress 2, boasting a pitiful HP pool of 125. To give you some perspective on how small of an HP pool this is, the rocket launcher and grenade launcher, which act as primary weapons for the soldier and demo man classes, who are some of the most popular classes to main in this entire game, deal 100 damage on a direct hit. So ignore what color your health bar is and focus on whether or not you're above or below the 100 HP threshold. If you're above it, you should be fine. If you're below it, you should look for some form of healing as soon as possible. Thankfully, to compensate for this weakness, you have some of the best mobility in the game. Boasting the highest move speed in the entire game, the only classes that will be able to keep up with you will be the soldier and demo man if they decide to use their explosives to propel themselves through the air. However, since this sacrifices their own HP in order to gain said mobility, in a battle of attrition, you will be able to win out if you can avoid their shots. And since you boast a double jump that lets you jump mid-air, you can very easily avoid these shots if you can see them coming. The double jump can also be used to avoid fall damage altogether by jumping shortly before you hit the ground, but it's most commonly used in order to take flank routes that would be inaccessible to most other classes. You also have the power to capture objectives with the speed of 2 people. This means if the defending team push too far ahead and you can sneak behind them through a flank route or some such, you can very easily win your team the game by simply sneaking behind them and backcapping the objective. No joke, many a game of Payload has been won by 2 teams ignoring the objective entirely in order to see how high a kill streak they can get, while a single scout simply sat on the cart the entire match. If you're looking for a comparison from other games, I think the most accurate one I'm aware of is Tracer from Overwatch, who has a very similar playstyle to the Scout, in the sense that you're a high-mobility glass cannon whose whole goal is to get in and get out as quickly as possible in order to get key picks in order to secure your team victory. The key difference is, unlike Tracer, you don't have a time machine strapped to your chest allowing you to undo your mistakes. So as a good rule of thumb, have an exit strategy in mind if you don't feel like dying after every kill. Thankfully, while you don't have Tracer's time machine, you do have her sex appeal because, as is confirmed through the comics of this game, you are God's gift to women. I am not making that up. This means not only do you have a future full of children, but also one full of flanking the other team looking for stray opponents to kill. This is because of a few factors. Firstly, the objectives on each map have a maximum cap rate, meaning having more than 3 to 5 people trying to capture a point at any given time is generally a waste of resources, since those other players would be better spent trying to stop the enemy team from opposing you. But also, secondly, a lot of weapons in this game are explosives, making it very easy to hit people who are clustered together in a defined area, such as a control point. This means if you see a lot of heavy contention around an objective, such as half your team fighting the other team in order to control it, you're probably better off taking the flank route and thinning the herd. A good rule of thumb is that soldiers, pyros, and heavies are the classes you'll want to avoid a 1v1 fight in unless you have a decisive advantage, such as if they're just a clueless noob who doesn't even realize you're behind them. This is because soldiers and heavies are tanky enough to win a battle of attrition unless you have some way to avoid their shots, which, given how this guide assumes you're a new player, you probably won't be able to do consistently. Especially with the heavies, since unlike the soldiers' rockets, there's no travel time. This is because all bullets in this game are hit scan, so despite the visuals in-game, they're functionally lasers that hit instantaneously. So if you see a heavy and they're fully revved up with their minigun, just run away, you're not going to be able to win that fight. Pyros are a different equation, however, compared to the soldiers and heavies, since their HP pool is small enough that you can realistically blitz them down if you have the element of surprise on them. But if you don't have the element of surprise, it's best to keep your distance from pyros. This is because their primary weapon, the flamethrower, is not only near impossible to miss with if you're in optimal range of, but it also causes you to catch on fire and deal afterburn damage, meaning it's very easy for you to be killed even after the pyro is long dead. By all means, jump the clueless player you found if you are able to maneuver behind them undetected, but when dealing with these 3 specifically, extra caution should be heeded. Also, be mindful of sentries. This is because sentries are physically incapable of missing their shots, so if you're in range of them, you will just be liquefied rather quickly. Sometimes you'll be able to shoot at a sentry from outside of their range, but most of the time engineers are smart enough to know how to place their sentries down without this being possible, so it's not a reliable tactic. And if you consistently find yourself unable to win a fight against the enemy team whatsoever, don't be afraid just to hug the cart and push the objective with your team. Sometimes that's just the best play to make. Especially in a game like Team Fortress 2, where players are typically more concerned with their KD ratio than actually playing the objective or winning whatsoever. Many a game has been won by one cheeky scout capturing the point while the defending team spawn camp. With the basics now covered, we should move on to the weapons. There are many different weapons that you can equip in varying combinations. However, for the sake of making sure this video is under an hour long, I will only cover the ones that you start with when you first install this game, the ones that can be acquired through achievements, as well as the ones that I personally use. You can acquire other weapons through crafting, trading, or from random drops, but, well, I don't have time to cover every single weapon combination for what is supposed to be a new player's guide. Firstly, let's go over your primary weapon. By default, and the one that I personally subscribe to, is the scattergun. With 6 shots in the clip, this shotgun-like firearm can kill anyone in 2 to 3 hits at close proximity. However, due to a mix of bullet spread and damage fall-off, the damage you'll get from this is basically non-existent at long range. This means in order to get the most out of this firearm, you're going to need to get up close and personal with your glass cannon character in order to actually kill anyone reliably. But the real downside is that you have a relatively long reload animation on this gun, which means that if you're trying to fight multiple people at once, you're not going to be able to kill them all without needing to reload, and you won't have enough time to realistically do that in a majority of scenarios. Alternatively, if you get the Scout Milestone 1 achievement, you'll be given the Force of Nature. The Force of Nature is a double-barrel alternative to your primary weapon. It boasts superior damage per hit at point-blank range, but this is simply because you're shooting more bullets in a single pull of the trigger, rather than actually doing more damage per bullet. This means while the initial hit you deal to someone will be doing more damage at close proximity, you'll actually be doing less damage overall with this firearm, especially since this gun has such a powerful recoil it can send people flying off cliffs. And while this can lead to some fun environmental kills as you push people into stage hazards or again off cliffs, realistically this is just going to cause people to be further away from you, resulting in the bullet spread resulting in fewer bullets hitting them, resulting in your second subsequent shot doing less overall damage. Also keep in mind that this gun can be used to perform a triple jump. This is because this gun has a recoil effect on it that makes it so that you'll actually push yourself in the opposite direction you're shooting if airborne. This means if you shoot below yourself after performing a double jump, you can actually use this gun to perform a third triple jump. This can sometimes open up unique flank routes, but it's mostly going to be used to avoid hitting fall damage after you mess up your double jump shortcut. Moving along to secondary weapons, the Scout in my opinion has no bad options. All of them are equally good and can be used in whatever conjunction you want with your other weapons and have a good time with. The one you start with when you first install this game is the pistol. It doesn't hit nearly as hard as your primary weapon whatsoever, but it can hit people from a greater distance. Pull this thing out whenever you need to kill someone and the scattergun isn't a reasonable alternative, such as when they're too far away or if you don't have time to reload. Just keep in mind that random bullet spread and damage fall off are still a thing here, so you won't be able to snipe people off from across the map with this gun whatsoever. Alternatively, if you get the Scout Milestone 3 achievement, you can swap this weapon out for a can of radioactive soda called the Bonk Atomic Punch. Chug this thing down and you'll become invulnerable to all damage temporarily. Just keep in mind that you'll have a slow debuff applied to you as soon as the effects wear off in relation to how much damage you use to avoid with this. This can be situationally useful if you're trying to get through heavily defended choke points or if your team's getting spawn camped. However, unless you're going for taunt kills, it's impossible to attack or kill anyone while under the effects of the bonk, so its usefulness is situational at best. Personally, I think the best use of this ability is to use it as a get-out-of-death-free card, using it to get out of certain death scenarios that would otherwise kill you. But my personal preference for Scout Secondary is the Mad Milk. This jar of cow fluids can be crafted by combining a Gerardi with a reclaimed metal in the crafting menu. However, it's best to either acquire this through a random drop or by trading with other players. As you probably deduced from the name of this weapon, it's a jar of white fluids that you throw at people. This can be used to extinguish yourself or your fellow teammates if a pyro set any of you on fire, but ideally you use it to drench your enemies instead. This is because whenever someone dripping in your love nectar receives damage, the person doing said damage gains HP equal to 60% of the damage dealt. This means if you throw this thing down in the middle of a team fight, your teammates will be healing for 6 HP for every 10 damage they deal. And you receive this healing too if you can hit the person you actually drenched in milk, meaning this thing can be quite useful at topping off your own health when you can't find a health pack. This is also the best secondary in a Scout's arsenal in regards to hunting down enemy spies. This is because Team Fortress 2 does not have any kind of friendly fire, so if you drop this milk down on one of your teammates and then you see them dripping wet with milk, that means that teammate is not actually on your team and is actually a spy in disguise. The best part of this, the spy can't use their cloak to escape. This is because the milk won't turn invisible with the spy, creating a silhouette of milky goodness around the spy's frame, allowing you to know where to shoot at. This is because while a fully cloaked spy does gain mild damage resistance, it's not damage immunity, so as long as you just keep shooting the silhouette of milk, you'll kill the spy eventually. As for melee weapons, by default you start with an aluminum bat. The damage is inferior per swing compared to the other class's default melee weapons, but it does swing faster so the DPS is the same. Still, realistically, you're not going to be using this unless you don't have time to reload or somehow ran out of ammo. Another melee weapon that I highly advise against using is the one you acquire from the Scout Milestone 2 achievement, the Sandman. The Sandman is a wooden baseball bat that allows you to launch a baseball at your opponents to do 15 damage, as well as apply a slow debuff based on how far away they were from you when it hit. However, the reason I advise against using this weapon wholesale is due to the fact that it lowers your maximum HP to 110. Maybe back when this weapon allowed you to stun people with the baseball, it was worth using. However, ever since the baseball's effects were nerfed into the ground, it's not worth using in any meaningful capacity. But my personal preference is the Wrap Assassin. The Wrap Assassin is a roll of wrapping paper that lets you throw Christmas ornaments at opponents to inflict bleed damage over time. The downside is that it has some of the worst melee damage in the entire game when you swing it at people. Before closing out the video, I do have a few more tips to help yinz out. First and foremost, never stay still while playing Scout. Your high mobility is your only real defense of any kind, so if you stand still, death will come sooner than you might think. Also, don't be afraid to use your double jump as much as possible. Moving targets are harder to hit, and airborne ones are doubly so. Just be sure when you're using your double jump that you're more like Obi-Wan rather than Anakin. Stop doing cool flips and trying to show off and boasting of your power, and just take the high ground and go for the win. And lastly, don't use teleporters whatsoever as a scout. You're the fastest class in the game, and a teleporter has a relatively long cooldown, especially if it hasn't been upgraded whatsoever. So if you use it, your teammates can't, so you'll have no meat shields to distract the other team while you do awesome stuff on the front lines. But that should be everything you need to know to get started. Videos like this will only get you so far out there, so get out there and start learning where all the medkits are so that you can figure out how to steal them from your dying teammates, because whilst I could go on about why you shouldn't do that, we all know that's what you're gonna do. But that's gonna be all for now. I want to make guides for the remaining 8 classes in this game, but I also want to make sure that all of yinz are actually going to watch that, so be sure to like the video down below if you want to see me cover the other characters. If not, I'll move on to other things. If this video can get 100 likes, I'll do a soldier guide, otherwise I'll start other projects. With that, I've been Ian, you have been you, thank you for watching.